Holly McKinney. I'm the Advocacy Director at Voices for Georgia's Children, and welcome to my 2-minute-ish take. It is casual Sunday here at my house because it was so busy I couldn't get organized enough to make a video for you guys on Friday. So here we are in my kitchen. That's it. That's our studio today. Anyway, lots of stuff, lots and lots of stuff happened. Big stuff. Most of it big stuff. Supplemental budget, which you know is the budget that sort of adds money back into this year's budget for things that were missed or miscalculated or whatever, passed the Senate. So now that budget has passed the House and the Senate, but they both changed it, which means now it will have to go to a conference committee to sort out the differences between the chambers. And then once the conference committee sorts that out, then it will go back to either chamber for a vote. So that was kind of big. In other budget news, hearings are going on now for the big budget, the FY16 budget. And we had hearings last week, we'll have hearings this week, and they will hammer that out. And usually that budget goes till way late in the session. Remember, it is the only bill that they're required to pass. Other stuff that happened, we had a lot of hearings, lots and lots of committee meetings. I would say session is now officially in full force. There was a joint hearing of both education committees from the Senate and House, where they brought in folks from Tennessee and from Louisiana to look at what we are calling here the opportunity school districts, which would turn over failing schools to the state. Louisiana and Tennessee both have programs that do that. Representatives came and spoke to the committees. There's a lot of conversation going on around that. There is some information in the governor's website about those, but there has not been a bill to officially drop, at least not one that I can find, and I looked really, really, really hard. So maybe by the time you see this video, there will be a bill. It would be a constitutional amendment that would allow Georgia to take over failing schools and have a superintendent oversee those who would report directly to the governor. So it's a big, 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 big conversation. Failing school conversation is so big that Voices for Georgia's Children and the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education have decided to do a Georgia Can panel on the 24th of February at 11:30 in the Blue Room. We'll bring in people from Louisiana, Tennessee. We're hoping the governor's office will be represented to talk about their plan, and a few other folks to kind of get our heads around what this really looks like for this constitutional amendment. So please sign up. Andrea will put a register link somewhere here, over here. What is an opportunity school district, you might ask? Well, it is actually an opportunity for the state to come into a failing school and take it over to restructure its management, its outcomes. There are 4 different ways it can be done. And you can click on a link that Andrea will put here to see a description of what the governor's plan is supposed to entail. It's a big conversation. It's really worth getting read up on it because the constitutional amendment is probably going to be one of the biggest voting events in the chambers this year. Let's see what else is going on. We had the child sex trafficking legislation sponsored by Renee Unterman on the Senate side passed the Senate. It's SB 8 and SR 7. It passed the Senate and it would basically provide a mechanism, if the constitutional amendment makes it far enough to get on the ballot, it would provide a mechanism to pay for services for children who have been commercially sexually exploited. It did have a safe harbor provision in it, but that currently is not in, which would basically have kept victims from being arrested, tried as prostitutes. Right now that is not in the legislation. Who knows what will happen there, because there are a few bills on the House side as well which are mirrors of those bills. So keep your eye out for that, and we'll try and keep you up to date. Okay, so through the magic of television, the smoke and mirrors, I have now scooched 4 inches to change the shot so that this potentially boring subject matter might stay interesting just with a different camera angle. And here I am about to talk about House Bill 100, which changes the enrollment date, the enrollment birth date for kids entering kindergarten. This bill, as the sponsor said in committee at least once, if he didn't know if his email or phone line was working, he knows now. The whole planet has been calling everybody about House Bill 100. It has changed, it has morphed. Initially, it would have changed the enrollment birth date for kids going into kindergarten and preschool this year. It would have pushed it back a month and then pushed it back another month the next year. But what has happened is the whole thing has moved 2 years forward. So everybody can take a deep breath for a minute and think about whether or not it's going to mess up your schedules a few years from now. It's worth keeping an eye on, though, because the conversation around what a kid needs to be ready for school, which is the impetus of this bill, is hoping that a child will be more mature when they enter kindergarten. there's so many other factors with kids that age that there are a lot of us who are talking about summer programs that kids need and things like that, which actually have a better chance of making them ready than a simple birthday date. But it's a good conversation to have. So also, Representative Katie Dempsey's bill, the Jason Flatt Act, is a bill that would require suicide prevention training for school personnel. It has cleared committee. It's a very important and a very emotional bill. There are lots of people, including us, who feel very strongly about that bill. And suicides, according to the Georgia Child Fatality Review Panel, are about 85% preventable with kids. And so the more training all of us have in suicide prevention, the better off we'll be. And another bill which we watched last year and watched it go down in flames at the end of the year, but is back this year, which we support, a bill that would require DFACs to notify school personnel about the results of child abuse reports that the school personnel would make to DFACs. So they will let them know that they've received the report, and then they would let them know the outcome of their investigation. So that's a pretty big bill. That has cleared committee. That bill and the Jason Flatt Act are now resting in the Rules Committee, waiting to be put on the floor of the House, as is House Bill 100. So that's everything for this week. If you want to get really active and do something awesome, you can call the Rules Committee and ask them to put the Jason Flatt Act and the DFACS bill on the floor of the House for a vote. That would be great if you felt like doing that. And Andrea will give you a link to the Rules Committee right here, or here, and that's here. So we're here. Okay, so my advocacy ask for this week is for you to sign up to come to our Georgia Can on rescuing failing schools. You can click a link somewhere on the screen to register, and if you register, you have a chance of having a box lunch because we know you're coming. But you can also just show up if you don't care about lunch. It's a really, really important subject, and it's a broad conversation because we have failing schools. We need to turn them around, but there are all kinds of elements around what that takes, and it's probably particular to each district. So anyway, please come, and if you can't come, you can stream it live. So that's our ask for the week. Signing off from Polly's farm in the city with my ducks and chickens and dogs and cats and bunnies and legislation. See you next week.